Welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and it is time for the top 10 safeties of the 2025 NFL Draft Class. I'm going to be devastated if the issue that I've been having with my mic is occurring in these recordings, because this is the third out of 4, maybe 5 videos that I am recording in a row right now, and then I've got to edit all of them and everything, and when I go into my editor, there's big gaps where I'm talking and there's no sound. It's going to suck. Going to really suck, but let's get going here. Safety rankings. There are links in the description to my top 90 rankings. That's going to start to be more than top 90. I've scouted about 442 prospects, I think is the exact number, and you can find all of that scouting information up on my Discord channel, where you can find my strengths, weaknesses, other notes on all of those guys, or on most of those guys, to different extremes about the depth for them. You can also find links down in the description to my website, where my big mock drafts are stored. I've released a 1.0, a 2.0, going to be releasing a 3.0 that I will be starting on as soon as possible. I got a little bit behind this off season, especially with these videos, so you've seen them come out in pretty good succession. And down below are links to all the previous positions that I have reviewed. This is my second to last video. This is the second most predictive position via the measurables, the physical athletic traits that you see tested at the combine. And you can check out the previous videos. Once again, links down in the description to the edge rushing video, the interior offensive line, wide receiver, cornerback, linebacker, offensive tackle, running back, interior defensive line, all of them. Let's get here into the video. Players that did not make my top 10 that I'm high on for one reason or another. Starting off with, I think it's Malaki is how I heard it pronounced. I always thought it was Sigil or Sigil. But I think it is apparently Sigley out of Kansas State. He has extremely good to elite athletics and a physical play style. I have a 4th to 5th round draft grade on him. Then we've got Maxine Hook out of Toledo. He's a low ceiling developmental safety with short-term hybrid linebacker and special teams upside. 6th round draft grade on him. Then you've got my third honorable mention here, Malik Verdon, big, girthy, long, peanut punching, old school strong safety who forced a 21% forced incompletion rate. That's a really good number. 6th round draft grade on him. And then Melvin Smith Jr., going to be the last one up on this list, out of Southern Arkansas. Probably my guy here. Small school, undersized, athletic, elite accelerator who fits the run well, and he has impressive ball skills. So look for him to maybe get taken prior to that 7th round draft grade, but I have him higher than the consensus by quite a ways, kind of a name that you probably haven't heard of. That's going to bring us on to my number 10 prospect here in Billy Bowman out of Oklahoma. 5'10.5", 195 pounds. You can see the athletic testing up on the screen for any players who did do athletic testing. Also, real quick, if you like these videos, please do like them. Don't forget to do that. But also, I'm going to be going live for the NFL draft. So I know a lot of great content creators go live, and I am not asking you to stay for too long, but I would love it if you stayed for 5 hours. But also, if you stay for 5 minutes, that would be very appreciated. I believe I will be recording each day of the draft. I'll be here giving instant grades, talking, interacting with chat, all that good stuff as much as possible. Let's get on to Billy Bowman here, 10th ranked safety prospect. He has many exciting plays on tape, as he has a knack for making the exciting play. At a certain point, is it luck, or is it just him being in the right spot because of something else? He's a solid prospect, he's smart, he's versatile, he's tenacious, he's good awareness, and he has plus athletics. However, he's one of, if not the worst tacklers in this draft class, and although I'm okay with subpar tackling for certain types of prospects, I prefer a good tackler, and a really poor tackler is definitely a ding for me. There's also little hope that he's ever going to get better as a tackler, because he has extremely short arms and an extremely small wingspan. Another issue I have is that he has not shown improvement in 3 years as a starter. He's helped his draft stock this offseason, most notably by standing out at Senior Bowl practices. I think he has several limitations that could prevent him from being his best self at the NFL level. My best bet is that he'll be a great def safety, but there's definitely starter upside within him. That's going to bring us on to my 9th ranked prospect in Keaton Crawford out of Nevada, 5'10.5", 202 pounds. Keaton, I don't know, Crawford, I know that one, has the highest athletic score for my personal athletic scoring system in this class, and he has a 9.72 RAS, so that tracks. As we are aware, of all the NFL positions, safety has one of the higher correlations between the athletic testing and good NFL careers. I love him. If I get another chance to rewatch my safeties 9, him, 8, and 7, I'm going to, and I might move him up a little bit more. I might move them around. Keaton Crawford is great in coverage. He's versatile. He plays hard, and he's durably built. Unfortunately, he's unreliable in the run and as a tackler, but outside of that, he's a fun watch. He was even used for a few plays on offense at Nevada. So it just tells you, I think, what the team thinks of him and once again, his athletic upside. Keaton is a very exciting developmental prospect. He's coming out early, getting his NFL career started here. Look for his name to start popping off in a year or two, if not sooner, but I think that's kind of just the plan, is to just get to the next level, and we'll work for that second contract. Seems to be his logic, instead of doing the NIL route. That's going to bring us on to Craig Woodson, my 8th ranked prospect out of California, 6 foot, 201 pounds. Craig was a guy who first caught my eye at the combine in the on-field drills, where he looked so good that I said so, and then I put an exclamation point after that. I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, but his name does show up near the top of a few of the on-field drill testing speeds, and his 8.76 RAS bodes well for him as well. He's a really good all-around player with good IQ and instincts. I think he could be a rotational safety as soon as his rookie season. That is going to bring us on to Lathan Ransom out of Ohio State. 6 foot even, 206 pounds. Even, maybe. Lathan Ransom is a star role hybrid linebacker safety type of player. Maybe he could develop into more. He is PFF's #1 ranked run defender at the safety position. Unfortunately, his tackling is a bit of an issue. Lathan is a role-specific contributor with developmental upside. He can do some things really well, but you don't want to ask him to move out of that comfort zone anytime soon, I would say. And that is going to bring us on to my 6th ranked safety prospect in Hunter Wohler. Hopefully that's how it's pronounced. Out of Wisconsin. 6'2", 215 pounds. Hunter has had a really good college career, and I was extremely surprised to see how high that I was on him. He, of course, is a great tackler, and you can tell that he loves to lay the lumber when he gets the opportunity to drop a dude. With a frame nearing linebacker territory, but not quite there, none of this is really a surprise, and as you'd expect, his range is limited. You're not going to want to ask him to be your safety valve at the, playing the back end of the defense, or to cover your opponent's fastest receiver. Just don't put him in those kinds of situations, and you're okay. And in comes the surprising part for me. I think that he's just got enough juice. He's a smooth mover. He looked really great in the on-field drills at the combine. Most notably, the box drill and the gauntlet drill is what I notated. Those are drills that test flexibility, quickness, agility. And out of 15 safeties at the combine where these numbers showed up, or at least the top 15 safeties at the combine, Hunter had the 6th highest max acceleration during his 40, despite having the slowest top speed. Like I said, he's got some juice to him. He had the 2nd best short shuttle and the best 3-cone. Hunter had the 3rd highest speed when backpedaling, the 2nd highest speed during the gauntlet drill, which like I notated he stood out in. I did cherry pick what I presented. He's not that high in all of the numbers. But the point is, there's evidence to back up what I was seeing on tape, and people point to these numbers for a guy like Malaki Starks all day long. And also, not Isaiah Bond, but Isaiah Bond, was it? They point to, I think, his on-field testing speed numbers as well. So why don't we point it out for a guy like Hunter Wohler? And the thing for me is that I did see this on tape, and the fact that you're seeing this also now in some of his testing numbers proves that I do think that what I see on tape has a good chance of transitioning then to the next level. Add on to all of that he has a really good fundamental understanding of the game and his position within the game, and that he's a good leader, and I'm willing to bet on this guy, obviously higher than a lot of others. Where I think his biggest asset may be at the next level is his ability to man up and cover tight ends, running backs, big slot power types of wide receivers, and that's a really important role to have in the NFL. I think that he could make an excellent 3rd safety on a team, and he has developmental starting upside, and once again could also fill a very specific important role in defenses. That is going to bring us on to my 4B prospect. Hunter Wohler was my 5th, and my 4A prospect. Oh, thank God I didn't double check beforehand if this slide fit and was not covered by my face, but it did. Good job by me eyeing that up when I created it. Pat myself on the back for once. All right, Nick Emmanwori comes out of South Carolina. He's 6'3", 220 pounds. And I forgot to put their athletic testing numbers on here. That's another thing. You can find all my combine testing numbers that's nicely color-coded like I put on these screens up on the Discord channel as well. If the link doesn't work to the Discord, please let me know. Discord server, I should say. But anyways, I forgot to put their testing numbers somewhere on this screen. Nick Emmanwori's is all bright blue, which is the elite testing numbers, almost all, or dark green, which is near elite. So like I said, freaky testing and freaky size combination for him. And then you got Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame, 5'11.5", 204 pounds. Very clearly, these are two different types of prospects, and that's why I have them tied here. It just depends what you're looking for, what role you need, what you prefer in your defense. Xavier Watts is a natural, smooth, instinctual, high motor, high floor prospect who has some athletic limitations that I do see pop up on tape. Whereas Nick Emmanwori, as I was saying, he's one of one when it comes to his size and his athletic testing. He scored a perfect 10 out of 10 RAS, relative athletic score. Once again, one of one, literally one of one when it comes to his RAS. The issue for me is that I don't see that on the field. At times I do, but even on a lot of his positive plays, they could be better. The amount of times that I see Nick Emmanwori hesitate, not trust what he's seen, react slowly to what's happening in front of him, is nearly 1 for 1, meaning basically every play. He doesn't take good angles. Thank God for his size because he needs it. He uses it. But sometimes you'd like for that not to be the reason that he was able to make the play, because it's a game of inches. And in the NFL, guys are going to be 1 inch more away from you. And that could be the difference between him making a play with his great wingspan and not making the play, especially early on in his career as he adapts to the game. I think that Xavier Watts is a starting safety who will have a long career in the NFL. Nick Emmanwori is the Shamar Stewart of the safety position, in my opinion. I think that there is a lot of projection here. Definitely higher up on the projection, on the production category than Shamar Stewart was, I would say. But just saying, that's kind of how I view him. A bit of a home run swing, high ceiling, low floor type of prospect. And I've seen too many Nick Emmanworis fail in the league that I'm just not touching with the 10-foot pole in the first round. But I'd be ecstatic to get him early on in the third round. When it comes to these guys, I'd be willing to take either of them late in the second round. Xavier Watts is my 65th ranked prospect, and Emmanwori is my 66th ranked prospect. That is going to bring us on to Kevin Winston Jr., my third ranked safety prospect in this class out of Penn State, 6'1.5", 215 pounds, and at this point, you might be catching on to a player who I definitely is my guy, and I am high on if you're familiar with this class. But first, let's talk about Kevin Winston. Kevin Winston brings the juice as a thick dude with a massive wingspan, and his downhill trigger is the best in this class. He'd very well may have been in the conversation for the best safety in this class had he not partially torn his ACL and missed almost the entire season, played 1.5 games. He can do it all. He's not just a big run-stuffing strong safety, though, but he does struggle in some of those lateral agility requests that come in coverage. His hip flip and his back pedal are both, they can be clunky at times. Sometimes he can be too aggressive, gets himself out of position, and he doesn't have the change of direction ability to recover from that very quickly. And finally, although he sets the tone when playing downhill versus the run and against short passes, he plays to hit people. He doesn't play the ball. He doesn't flip his head when he's deep downfield following passes. Instead, he just waves his long arms, with great success, may I add, to force the incompletion. He only has 1 interception in his college career, which, to be fair, he was only a starter for 1 season. He's going to be 21 years old on draft day, still a young prospect, not a whole lot of development through his college career due to that injury this season, which is where you might have been able to see him work himself into that, safety 1 territory if he could have cleaned up some of these things. Due to a lack of reps, he's definitely a projection. I will freely admit that. but he's not a project. And although there is development yet needed, I think that he can be a starter by the end of year one. I think he has the highest ceiling of any safety in this class, and that's why I have him ranked ahead of Xavier Watts. And if ceiling is the thing that we're looking for, which I think a lot of times you should chase ceiling to some extent, then straight up, coming out of college, Kevin Winston is a better safety than Nick Emmanwori, and I don't think that that's very much of a question. Let's go on to my second ranked prospect, tied for my first ranked prospect. He is my 1B, and I thought of flipping this again. Malaki Starks, out of Georgia, 6'1", 197 pounds. This is truly a 1A and a 1A situation. I don't even really have any kind of separation mentally between these two, Malaki Starks and my 1A prospect. I have to put him in some order, right? I can't put him in no order. So the order was 1B for Malaki Starks, and part of that's just because the next guy, my number 1, is my guy. So I just kind of gave him the nods. But depends what you're looking for too here. Definitely different players. Malaki Starks is a versatile, intelligent, and physical player. He's an excellent tackler, and he also has excellent leadership qualities, and that's where something that I've given other guys big bumps for. At times, I don't think I've given Malaki Starks enough of a bump for that portion, the leadership, and more so like the IQ of understanding the game. A really smart player. Add to that the fact that he is still young and he still has room to grow and develop. A lot was asked of him in college, and he never got the opportunity to specialize in anything, which I think shows, and which at the NFL level, we love these versatile guys. We love that they can do this, that, and this and that. But more often than not, they are just asked to do one thing a lot of the time in the NFL, and then they're in emergency situations, their versatility gets relied upon, or in 1 or 2 games a year, some creative game plan gets created, and that player's versatility shines. But otherwise, most games, the versatility doesn't really end up mattering a whole lot on a game in and game out basis, I'll say. So that's one knock that I do sometimes want to remember of. Like, I just want the better player at the end of the day. The versatility is something that gets talked about a lot more this time of the year than it does a month or 2 from now. You know, we call a whole heck of a lot of guys versatile this time of the year. We only call a few guys versatile when it comes to in the NFL. So picking up from where I went onto that little conversation from, as I do think that his lack of specialization in anything shows up on film. I felt that a lot of his run-stopping production came in cleanup duty. I felt that his coverage ability lacked on some levels, in part due to poor short area quickness and agility, which both show up on tape and in his testing, in my opinion, as far as being on tape, but does show up in his testing. I view Malaki Starks as a high floor, high-ish but limited ceiling type of prospect. The type of player that coaches and parts of the fan base will appreciate more than what his actual production numbers show. Of course, once again, that's something that could change a little bit more as he actually specializes with a team in some specific areas of his game. He's a scheme/system agnostic player, so in terms of his draft stock, any team should have interest in him. There's not teams that are saying, well, I don't know that he could do this or that for us. No, he can do it all. But what is ultimately asked of him and the coaching will be the key to unlocking this ceiling that he has. Of course, he can do some things better than he does other things. Nonetheless, he can come in and be a day 1 starter. I don't doubt that very much. He's currently my 30th ranked prospect, and I feel good about getting him there. You know, some guys, it's like, well, you know, yeah, he's my 40th ranked prospect. I'd feel good with him at 30, but I'd also feel fine with him at 55. Nah, you know, Malaki Starks, like, I really do, like, I'm happy getting him there at the end of the first round, and like, oh boy, the upside here is pretty cool. But there's a guy who I do even like more, and that's Andrew Makuba, coming out of Texas, 5'11", 186 pounds, and I'm going to directly compare him to what we just spoke about for Malaki Starks here. Is Makuba versatile? Not to the level of Malaki Starks, that's for sure, but that's where I sometimes put a guy like Makuba a little bit higher, despite the fact that they are limited, despite the fact that their draft stock is less because some teams just aren't going to have them on their board. What they do at the next, what they specialize in, they do at a high level better than, you know, some other guys, and that's where they'll push them up. So sometimes these guys' draft stock falls because some teams are ignoring them, but ultimately they're also end up performing better than a lot of guys in front of them because they go to the right situation. Is Andrew Makuba the same type of leader that I spoke about as Malaki Starks is? If so, I do not see that reported on to any bit of the same level. I do see some reports about him being a good leader. You see that on a fair amount of guys at this time of the year, once again, but Malaki Starks is one of those where it's like, it's for sure his leadership abilities are going to translate to the next level in the locker room. Is Andrew Mukuba athletically or physically superior to Malaki Starks? No. I'm going to put up on the screen right now their RAS comparison. They're nearly identical athletically. However, Mukuba does win by a hair in that department, I believe, at every step of the way. And they're both undersized, but Andrew is smaller than Malaki Starks physically as well, even though they're both undersized. What I like about Mukuba is that he is ultra instinctual. I think that is the single most important quality for a safety ahead of even the athletic testing. The ability not to react, but to anticipate. Because Mukuba has that, he's a rangy, backside safety blanket. He has excellent field vision, and when he doesn't prevent a play from happening, he prevents the big play from happening more often than not. He had a lowly 12.1% passer rating, 12.1 passer rating against him last year. He had a 26.1% forced incompletion rate last year. Personally, I love the two extremes of safety play. I love the guys who can roam free and make plays in the deep and intermediate range, Andrew Mukuba. And I love guys who can scream up the field, lay down the lumber, and make plays at or behind the line of scrimmage with regularity. We're thinking the Nick Emmanworis or the Kevin Winstons in that department. Malaki Starks is one of these, once again, hybrid-ish, could play either strong safety, free safety, a lot of great things, and in the modern-day game, definitely much more important and reliable, and the NFL knows how to use his type of player more, and he's more important, I think, than he would have been years ago. But when you compare the two, my still immediate preference goes to a guy specialized in one of those two departments a little bit more. Obviously, I don't have Nick Emmanwori, I don't have Kevin Winston over Malaki Starks, but I still, Makuba's just, that much ahead of those guys for me that I like that specialization for Mukuba. So on your screen, you're going to see some snippets from PFF, and I want to establish before we go into this following information dump that both of these players played against very similar levels of competition. As you can see, Andrew Mukuba played in Texas, Malaki Starks played in Georgia. Both of them, neither one of them, I should say, necessarily played against tougher competition. Mukuba graded out much better in 2024, according to PFF. He had a 90 overall grade, as you see on the screen, whereas Starks had a 78.3 grade. Mukuba played fantastically against their strongest competition, whereas Malaki Starks is a bit of a mixed bag in that department. Starks had more production, if you look at some of those numbers. Or did he? Starks played about 200 more snaps than Mukuba did, or about 125% more. Mukuba's tackle rate per snap was 8%, whereas Starks was 6.8%. If you give Mukuba 200 more snaps at that rate, he'd have had 10 to 11 more tackles than Starks, for a total of 72 or 73 tackles. Actually, it rounds up to 73 tackles. Mukuba also had 3 more tackle assists on 200 fewer snaps, and if you do the same thing that I just did for the tackles, then Mukuba might have had, once again, this is projection forward, not a perfect thing that I'm doing here, but Mukuba might have had 8 or 9 more assists than Mukuba as well. I think that one rounded down to 8, technically, both of them within a tenth of rounding up or down. Now, you may be looking at this, Adam, and you say, well, Mukuba had 13 missed tackles, but Starks only had 7. Sure, on a per-tackle opportunity basis, Starks whiffed less. But that doesn't change the fact that Mukuba was still involved in, and successfully so, more plays than Starks was on a per-play basis. Once again, he would have had more tackles, even if he would have also missed more tackles and more of those opportunities. Flat out, Mukuba would have been around the ball on more plays than Starks was. I already talked about Makuba's passer rating against him being 12.1. Starks was 99.6. Starks had 5 incompletions on 200 more snaps than Makuba's 6 forced incompletions on 200 fewer snaps. Starks allowed 2 touchdowns and only had 1 interception. Mukuba allowed no touchdowns and had 5 interceptions. Can all of this be true? It is, and yet Malaki Starks is still the better prospect? or at least becomes the better player in the NFL? Yes, of course, but that doesn't change the fact that Andrew Mukuba is being underappreciated this offseason and is fantastic and is a complete my guy. And I like him a lot, if that's not clear. Not saying I love him. If I loved them, he'd be more like a clear first-round draft grade. I'll get to that in a second, but not too dissimilar from Starks, but differently so, and more exaggeration here. Where Andrew Mukuba goes, the scheme fit that he has with where he goes, are both going to go a long ways in determining his success in the NFL, and probably more so than Starks, like I was alluding to there. I think, like I said, Starks scheme agnostic. Basically what it comes down to is Mukuba has a higher ceiling, right situation, all that good stuff. I like his ceiling more. However, he also is a riskier prospect and needs to be in the right situation. He has a lower floor than Starks does. Starks will find success no matter what he's asked of doing, I think, at the next level to some extent. Andrew Mukuba does have a chance of flailing. Mukuba is my 29th ranked prospect. I would be higher on him, but he's not reliable enough of a tackler against running backs when they make it to the second and third level, and I don't know that he ever can be due to some physical limitations of his. So that's where he's not the perfect safety, we'll say. He's not Kyle Hamilton, I suppose. So that is going to be it for my safety rankings. We've just got, is it the edge? It's the tight end. Tight end rankings will be last up, so check that out. Check out previous videos, links in the description, and come visit me. Like the video if you made it here. Let's end the video there.